If you've been told you can deduct all of your clothes because you're on camera or because it's your brand, that advice is wrong. And not wrong in the gray area type of wrong, it's wrong as in wrong. Okay, the IRS has been litigating clothing deductions for decades. Being on screen and building a brand are not new concepts. There's no new creator loophole, and the rules haven't changed just because social media did. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact tax law that applies to clothing and what you can do to fall on the tax favorable side of it. And I'm Jasmine DiLucci. I'm a tax attorney, CPA, and enrolled agent. I got my first tax license as an enrolled agent in high school, and one of the most common things that I see is tax strategists making up the law in their head because it sounds nice, when the actual tax law says something entirely different. Yes, you must wear clothes to work. Yes, if you showed up naked and barefoot, you would probably lose clients and income. No, that does not make them a business expense. In applying the tax code, courts have to decide if expenses are non-deductible personal expenses under 262A or deductible business expenses under 162A. So we'll go over exactly what you need to do for clothing to be a deductible business deduction. By the end of this video, you'll understand three things. Okay, the rule, the exact law that applies to clothing, where people lose, so why most clothing deductions fail in court, and what actually works when clothing can be deductible and how to spot the difference. Let's start with the rule itself, because if you don't understand this part, everything else you hear online about clothing write-offs is just noise. Okay, the IRS does not evaluate clothing deductions based on gut reaction or common sense. They evaluate them based on a checklist. Every deduction starts with the burden of proof on you. And clothing is generally presumed to be personal unless you show otherwise. And when an auditor sees clothing deductions on a return, that is often enough to trigger follow-up questions and requests for more detailed support. Every tax court case with clothing deductions at dispute uses the same three-part test to determine if your clothing is a business expense. Okay, clothing is deductible only if all three of these are true. First, the clothing must be required or essential for your job, not just helpful or on brand, but essential as a condition of performing the work. Second, the clothing must not be suitable for personal use. This is the most heavily scrutinized requirement because most clothing is suitable for personal use. Third, the clothing must not be worn personally. So you need to wear the clothing for business for it to, of course, be a business deduction. And that's why clothing write-offs are one of the most misunderstood deductions. It sounds like if you buy it for business and use it for business, you would be able to deduct it under 162A like so many other types of deductions. But because it is a high abuse area, the court developed a specific test with a heightened threshold to meet, giving the IRS the ability to often easily throw out your clothing deductions. Now let's talk about when people think they qualify and where the IRS shuts it down. Most people hear the first requirement, that it's required or essential for business, and they stop there. They say things like, I'm required to wear this on camera, or my clients expect me to look a certain way, or this is a part of my brand. But because it's easy to abuse, the courts decided that wasn't enough. Passing the first test can sometimes be easy. Passing the second test, that it's not suitable for personal use, is where almost everyone loses. Here's the key rule people misunderstand. The tax court uses an objective standard, not a subjective or personal one. They ask, would the average person wear this casually? They do not ask whether you would wear it personally, whether you bought it only for work, or whether you intended it to be business clothing. If the average person would reasonably wear it outside of work, it is considered suitable for personal use and therefore not deductible. For example, you may say, I would never wear a luxury Rolex or designer shoes for personal reasons, but other people would, so it wouldn't meet the test. This is why intent doesn't save you. Let me show you how consistently this plays out in tax court. And a great place to start is Hamper v. Commissioner, a 2011 court case where the taxpayer was a television news anchor who was required to maintain a polished, professional appearance on air. Her job literally depended on how she looked, which is why she deducted the cost of professional clothing and grooming as business expenses. The tax court did not hesitate and denied the deductions. The court's reasoning was simple. Professional clothing is still personal clothing if it is suitable for general wear. Just because your job requires you to look a certain way does not turn everything clothing into a business deduction. Next is Barnes v. Commissioner, a 2016 tax court case that surprises a lot of people. Here, a Ralph Lauren employee was required to purchase and wear Ralph Lauren clothing while working in the store. This wasn't optional. It was a condition of employment. Common sense tells you that sounds like something that should be deductible as unreimbursed employee business expenses, but the court denied the deduction entirely because Ralph Lauren clothing is normal, everyday apparel. If the clothing is suitable for personal or general use, it is not deductible, even if you are required to wear it. Then we have Pevsner v. Commissioner, which really drives home the point. Okay, in this case, a boutique manager was required to wear extremely expensive designer clothing sold by the store. She argued she would never have bought or worn that clothing in her personal life because of the cost and her lifestyle. The court rejected that argument completely. The court explained that the test is objective, not subjective. The IRS does not care what you would personally wear. The only question is whether the clothing is generally accepted as ordinary streetwear. Designer clothing, no matter how expensive, still counts as normal clothing, so the deduction was denied. And finally, there's Mella v. Commissioner, which shows just how strict this rule really is. In that case, the taxpayer was a tennis instructor who was required to wear tennis attire at the club. He purchased tennis shoes that lasted only 2 to 3 weeks because of how much he played, and he argued that the shoes had better cushioning and feel for professional use. The court still denied the deduction, okay? The reasoning was that it was relatively commonplace for all Americans in all walks of life to wear athletic clothing and shoes like these during casual or recreational events. Tennis shoes are still shoes. Athletic clothing is still everyday clothing. And when you put all of these cases together, the rule becomes very clear. For clothing to be deductible, it must be required for work and it must be not suitable for personal or general use. If the clothing would typically be worn outside of work personally, to dinner, to the store, or anywhere else, the deduction fails, no matter how reasonable it is. So if that's where clothing deductions fail, here's what actually changes the analysis and when clothing can become deductible. This is the part people half understand and then completely butcher online. The tax court has recognized that clothing with a clear, visible business logo may qualify as not suitable for general or personal use, but not because logos are magically deductible. The reason this works is based on our 3-part test, okay? Once clothing is clearly and visibly branded, the courts have found that it no longer functions as ordinary streetwear. At that point, it stops being personal clothing and starts looking like a uniform, therefore it is not suitable for personal use. Now, let's get practical for a minute, okay? Because the tax law, it's always important to understand the why. We operate under a substance-based tax system, and that why actually drives the result with the IRS and with tax court. So the obvious question is, why would a logo change whether clothing is suitable for personal use, right? After all, the Ralph Lauren logo didn't help the taxpayer in Barnes as an employee business expense, so why do courts sometimes allow deductions when a business puts its own logo on clothing? So I'll tell you what I think after reading dozens of cases on clothing. Courts view it as reasonable and ordinary for a business to have clearly branded shirts or uniforms. Okay, that doesn't look like someone trying to turn personal wardrobe into a write-off. It looks like normal business behavior. Once the clothing is visibly branded, it appears to be in line with Congress's intended result for business deductions, not an abuse to make your personal clothing a business deduction. That's also exactly why you shouldn't listen to these hooligans on social media finding creative ways for you to abuse this logo rule. And sometimes these hooligans have a license, they just spend all of their time marketing and lack even basic tax law understanding. When people on social media tell you to slap a tiny hidden logo on a designer suit and call it deductible, they're ignoring how tax law actually works. The courts and the IRS look to substance over form. A suit with a barely visible logo, or even worse, a logo on the inside, is still very much a suit that is suitable for personal use and does not meet the 3-part test. So here's the rule you should remember and the rule the IRS applies. Clothing is deductible only if it is required or essential for work, it is not suitable for personal use, and it is not worn personally. That's why clothing write-offs are far more limited than social media makes them sound. And for actual tax law from a tax attorney, subscribe.